Good morning. Today we are going to talk about conditional logic, and basically I've set up a survey. It's a very simple survey, 3 questions. What happens when people go through this process is they select an answer and the next question is relevant to the answer that they selected. So we can see on this survey that I've set up, which is available in the Academy, I've got 6 different answers. So they can either say that they run a blog, they run a YouTube channel, they create digital courses, they're podcasters, publishers, or they sell software. Now, as an example, let me say I selected that I create YouTube videos. So I own a YouTube channel. If I click on this answer, the next question that appears is based on the fact that they own or they operate a YouTube channel. So if I refresh this page again, let's say I selected I'm a podcaster, it's going to come up with a podcasting secondary question. If I go back again, I think you're getting the idea, say I run a blog, it's going to come up with the biggest blogging struggle. So the way this works is using conditional logic. So based on the answer they select, they get sent to a specific question. I'm going to show you how to do this inside SurveySlam. First of all, let me just quickly show you the whole survey. So say I selected I'm a publisher. So what is the biggest publishing struggle? To get more leads and signups for my book because they're a publisher, or struggling to get leads to buy products or services. So say I selected I want to get more leads. It takes us to the third question. So this is what type of training do you prefer? Video workshops, group coaching, one-to-one mentoring. And once they submit the answer, it takes them to the final question. Now, I called this a 3-question survey for a reason, because we're not actually going to be getting people to see this section. If you're importing a user's name and email using the URL in an email or passing the email through a lead optimization form, I'm going to show you that in another video. This section won't actually appear. It will just jump straight to the end result once they finish their answers. So we've done this to increase conversions. As an administrator, because I'm logged into my WordPress dashboard, it shows me the question. This is just so you can edit it and stuff like that. Basically, you have this widget in place, so people that aren't sent through, they still get the option to type in their name and email, but it won't actually show for people that are imported in. Okay, so let's go back to our survey inside SurveySlam. Now, we've got one first question, and that is basically finding out what type of business they run. And for each of these answers, so for the blog, the YouTube channel, digital courses, we have a specific question set up. So if we go through these, we can see biggest blogging struggle, biggest podcasting struggle, biggest YouTube struggle, biggest publishing struggle. We've got all the different struggles set up. And then we've got our third question, which is what type of training do you prefer? Followed by our opt-in form, which they most likely won't see because we'll be passing their details through. So what we want to do is select these answers to go to the specific relevant question, and then we want to select these answers and make sure they jump to the next relevant question. So the way SurveySlam works is if you have no conditional logic in place, it just goes to the next question. When they click an answer on that question, it goes to the next question. Click an answer on that question, it goes to the next question. So it goes from top to bottom through the survey. So if you want to stop that from happening, use conditional logic, and I'm going to show you how that works now. So for the first answer we have here, I run a badass blog. Now the next question is, what's your biggest blogging struggle? So we don't actually need conditional logic for this one. You can see down here, this is the conditional logic area where you jump to another question. Because it's the next question anyway, we don't need to jump to a question. It's already there. So next, let's look at the next answer, which is I rock a YouTube channel. So if we select YouTube channel, we can see down here, the next question is automatically going to be what's their biggest blogging struggle. So we don't want them to go to that question. We actually want them to jump from this question when they click this answer to your biggest YouTube struggle. So to do that, we just click on the answer, I rock a YouTube channel. Then we click on this jump to question box and we find the biggest YouTube struggle because that's the question that we want them to go to. So once that's selected, we go through and we do that with all of the other questions. So I create digital courses. We've got that jumping to biggest course struggle. I'm a podcaster. We've got that jumping to biggest podcasting struggle. I'm a publisher. We got that jumping to biggest publishing struggle, and the same with software. But there's another step involved. So once we have selected that we're jumping to the YouTube channel, as we can see down here, we need to go to the biggest YouTube struggle question. Now, there's a reason for this, because you can see we've got all these other questions below. And by default, once someone clicks on these answers, they're going to go to all these questions unless you set up conditional logic. So we don't want them to go through the biggest publishing struggle, the biggest course struggle, the biggest software struggle, because the only thing that's relevant to them is the biggest YouTube struggle. I hope you're following me. So what we want them to do is once they've answered one of these questions, we want them to jump to the third and final question, which is what type of training do you prefer? So for both of these answers, we need to apply conditional logic. So I'm going to click on the first answer, select jump to question, and we're going to select what type of training do you prefer? And we're going to do the same with the second one. I struggle to get leads to buy my products or services. And we're going to click on jump to question, what type of training do you prefer? So the sequence we've just set up is extremely simple. Let me show you how it looks on the front end one more time. So as we said, when they click on the first question, the first answer, I rock a YouTube channel, we've set up conditional logic to actually send them to the biggest YouTube struggle question. Now, if you remember after this, we have all the other questions like the biggest publishing struggle and all those other struggling questions. But we've set up these answers to actually jump those questions and go straight to what type of training do you prefer? So you can see they're not seeing any of those other questions. They're just going through the ones that are relevant to them. And that is how conditional logic works. Now, this is actually quite an advanced survey. You can see we've got 6 different paths going in 6 different directions. But what happens if you actually wanted to add in extra questions for bloggers or extra questions for podcasting struggles? So let's go back to our YouTube example. So I rock a YouTube channel. They're going to get led to the biggest YouTube struggle. Imagine if you wanted to add in another question for the YouTube audience, just for the YouTube audience. What you would do is basically you can duplicate this question, and then we could say, what's your biggest issue with you getting YouTube subscribers, or whatever you want. But because these 2 questions follow each other, you want to turn off the conditional logic on these 2 and apply it to the last question for those YouTubers. So we don't want this one to jump to the training. This is the first question which they land on, so we're going to turn this off. What we want to happen is for them to click on the answer and just go straight to the next question. So now let me just change the name of this, biggest YouTube desire. Let's call it biggest YouTube desire. So now it's going to be a bit more easy to identify. Okay, so now we've got the biggest YouTube struggle. When they click on that answer, they're automatically going to drop down to the next one because I've turned off the conditional logic. Now, on the biggest YouTube struggle, which is the second question, we've got it set to jump to what type of training. So when they click on one of these answers, they're going to jump straight to what type of training. So that is all set up and ready to go now. So let me show you how that looks on the front end one more time. Okay, so if I refresh this page. So I run a badass blog. I run a YouTube channel. So I'm going to select this answer. What's your biggest YouTube struggle? I need to get more leads and signups from my channel. What is your biggest YouTube desire? Then you'd obviously put in your other questions. But once I click this, it goes to what type of training do you prefer? So I hope you can see how powerful this method is. You can actually create extremely complex funnels using conditional logic. So you could have 10 questions for bloggers, 10 questions for podcasters, 10 questions for YouTubers, 10 questions for publishers, 10 questions for course struggles. You get the general idea of how it works. So I hope that has helped you. If you have any questions, drop me a message, jump in the Facebook group, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye for now.